My name is George Armstrong, in case any of you don't know. Uh, I didn't put my name tag on today, but what we're going to do is change bearings in this lathe here and kind of show you how. First thing we're going to do is discuss a little bit about bearings themselves. This one is going to have a standard bearing in it, which means you can put it in either side, it doesn't matter, because the races are kind of like that, and they're kind of even. And the ball will run in there. Now, there are other bearings that's good chance you'll run into on some of the more expensive lathes. Is there going to be, you'll have to put them in a certain way because they're going to be, this bearing right here really is not supposed to take the thrust inwise. It's made to take the thrust on the radial area, in case you can't see me. But that's what these are for. And that's why one of the reasons you may have to change bearings more often, because you're gonna, they're not gonna take the thrust. They'll have other ones that are the bearing will be kind of up in here like this. And depends on how far this comes around on this side and this side, it's gonna be how much thrust it'll take. These will come in some that will separate and some that won't separate. And the thrust is made to go this way on those. So when you put those in, you'll have to have one one way and one the other way so that you're not getting a bunch of shuck back and forth in your in your spindle. So then you'll have the tapered roller bearings. I don't know if any of you know what those are, but they're just a tapered. And you'll have a shell in the other half that matches that. And it's just a ring. It'll press in one side. You need to be really careful on these. If you have, anybody has one of these, there are some of the lathe manufacturers that do put that in. Don't put them up too tight. They have to have a little play in there. Otherwise you'll burn them right up. They're just like the front wheel bearings on some of the older cars that used to be rear wheel drive. That you have to, if you put them too tight, you won't go down the road very far. You're better off having them loose. So that's kind of what these are. The only what's the name of that chuck that they make in Australia? Huh?
Copy.
They make a lathe, Vicmark lathe. And I do not like their spindle arrangement on that. They run that tapered roller bearing. And one of the things that they do is they don't step their shaft. So the front bearing, it has to go all the way down that shaft with pressure on it. Another thing they do is they tighten them up too tight. And you know, There's a lot of people had a lot of trouble with that. They burned those bearings right out. You need to loosen those up a little bit and so to make sure they get lubrication. They have, some of them have forced lubrication in and some of them don't. Uh, and the forced lubrication is really a problem. I've seen where they're demonstrating the Vicmark lathes and they've had that problem with them right there on the floor. And what they did is they greased them. And you could see the grease coming out all over around the, you know, on the lathe there. We're going to throw it out and stuff like that. You really don't want that crap all over your wood. So, and it does make kind of a mess. So, and that's has a standard bearing in it. And that can be one of the reasons that didn't hold up because of the force you're putting on that way. Another thing they got on this one is this part right here goes up against the bearing and puts a pressure on it. You don't want to tighten that up too tight because that'll put pressure on your bearing and they won't last any time at all. And another thing it may cause a problem if those screws here that hold this on are not tight enough. And if you're worried about putting a mark on your shaft in here, what you can do is put a small slug of brass or copper in there and then really tighten down and it won't hurt the threads on the spindle. So, but when you're grabbing a hold of it to slow it down, it can eventually tighten that up a little bit. And it doesn't take a whole lot. And you'll just be putting too much pressure right on these little areas right here. And it'll start to mark the ball. So, and that's another reason you have to be a little careful when you're putting them in is not to be hammering on them a whole lot because you can put a little mark in the ball. You won't be able to see it, but it'll eventually tear the bearing up. So that's kind of what we're doing there. Hopefully I got the right size Allen wrenches here. Let's see here. Try that. And they're evening. No, that one ain't it. Well, maybe they're metric. Yeah, we'll see. I brought these along just in case, and maybe I'll have to use them here. Yeah, they are. They're metric. Anyway. And there's not a whole lot of difference between the metric and the English. And sometimes you can get away with using the English one and the metric, but it don't normally work that well. Okay. What do we got here? No. Something you'll want to be careful of when is they'll put another set screw right on top of these. And if you don't take that screw all the way out and look,
I just want to interrupt you. Doug and I took one apart and we didn't know there was a set screw underneath the other set screw. So we were banging on it with hammers and everything, trying to get it out. And George said, "Oh, well, there's another set screw underneath there." And so
and you must ruin the end of the shaft out, and then you'll really have a problem. Well, that thing does not want to come off. Well, that's because it's a left-handed thread. How's that? And this one here does have a wave washer under it. And that's a little spring, and what that's to do is you snug it up and it flattens this out some, but not completely. And that gives it a little bit of movement. We'll put that stuff down there and try to keep it out of the way. Take your belt off. Okay. Now you can see this, it's going to move pretty easily. And there's that screw right there. All right, there it is. Lost my wrench. Come on. There. I didn't think that was going to come loose. This one might be like the ones that were on here. They had some glue on top of the set screw there that they were made that way so that they don't come out. And okay, now this one does not have a double set screw in it. So it should, yeah, there it goes. Slip right out. Don't even have to pound it. Got the shaft. I don't know where do you want this, on the lathe bed or on the table? So they can see it. Right here? Okay. Now you can see there's like little rusty areas in here. That's normal for them because they'll work a little bit. They're really not a press fit,
Is that too hot,
huh? Not for me, but
too bright?
no.
So now what are you doing, George?
I'm just gonna knock the bearing out of the front.
Cause it's pressed into the housing.
Yep. Not so much on the old bearings because they're shot anyways. So,
But if you had one, you could use it.
yeah,
Little slide hammer one or.
yeah, you can.
Here, let me do it. You're blocking the view. Do it.
Yeah, no. Anyways. Actually, that bearing feels pretty good. Yeah,
That's
so,
afraid of that.
yeah, but
Well, and because he pounded on the outside race, which was pressing there, we'll be able to reuse this.
Yeah.
If he would have pounded on the middle race to get
I,
that.
I did pound on the middle race
Okay.
because you can't get to the outside race.
Oh, right, it was buried.
They're-
wasn't
they're-
it? Okay,
right.
Never mind,
So,
but it still feels good.
yeah, so, and
Sometimes when you pound on that middle one, you just drive that thing apart.
yeah. Well, you're pounding right on the, right on this edge of the ball here. That's,
Yeah.
and that's where you'll mark the ball.
Now he's knocking out the back one.
I don't know whether you noticed, but I'm using a wooden mallet, and that's usually what I use when I'm pounding on this stuff so I don't mushroom shafts out and that kind of stuff. It's a nice heavy mallet, short handled. It's Osage orange on the head, which gives it some weight. So,
No, okay, good.
so, yeah. Well, anyhow, now the one,
You want to pass that around? Another thing with these bearings, when you when you get them out, you can take the number on that and go to Granger and they'll probably have that sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, Granger over on Roger Beach Cafe, they usually have all that stuff.
yeah,
Um,
if you buy them online, they're usually going to be cheaper.
yeah, if you go to Granger, they'll give you two options usually, a better and a standard replacement, but they tend to always have a better one
Yeah.
that they'll offer to sell you if you want to put a better bearing in. Yeah.
All I'm doing is just wiping out the inside of the stuff to get the dirt out. So we're not putting stuff on there.
How come the picture isn't on there?
And there's really not a whole lot to do in this.
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
I'm surprised that bearing come off there on the front one. Usually you gotta take a wedge or something like that. and go down in here and drive that bearing back a little bit. You know, I have to go around it to do it. I have had them where they're stuck on there so bad, you break the bearing, the outside edge of the bearing, and everything comes apart, and I've had to go in there and grind this right in two. You try to grind it just short of coming down here when that happens, just before you hit the spindle. And grind it in a couple places and set it on something, not your lathe bed, but something else. And give it a good crack with a hammer and it'll break. They're hard enough, they'll break. So anyways, that's okay. Just a block of wood. Protect the lathe bed. Gonna set this right down here. And this will hit right on that inside race. It won't hit anyplace else. So driving on the inside race, you're driving right straight on there. You're not putting any pressure on the ball. And that's pretty much all there is to it. If you drive on the outside, you'll have a problem. Some of these bearings are not shielded on both sides. Those you'll have to make sure that you got them on the right way so that it come on. Well, turn it over. So that you're not throwing grease out the front of it or out the back, because you don't want it on your belt. Usually there's enough area around here that it'll cover it. And occasionally they'll have a grease seal or something on the front, or a plate across the front to keep that grease in. But that these are shielded on both sides, so it doesn't matter.
Can I
Hmm?
say one thing?
Sure.
Yeah, these are still bearings. Another thing, if you have a lathe and you ran until this bearing dried up and seized, and then the bearing actually was spinning on this shaft, because the race is not supposed to spin on the shaft. All the movement is between the inner race and the outer race. If it spins on there and wears into this shaft, you know, you pull that off and this is all worn, you're gonna have to replace your shaft. That's what you hear these gearheads talking about their old, you got my 68 Camaro and it spun a bearing. That's what they're talking about on the crankshaft. It spun that bearing and
Yeah.
wore into the crank. I moved that back out for you.
Yeah.
George.
That's all right. But there is, if it's not too bad, there is a fix for that. You can knurl those, which actually raises that metal a little bit to make that bearing fit back on there. And then you can they got a Loctite that's got what they call a bearing set. It'll fill a certain amount of gap. You can use some of that in there along with it. But you are going to have a little more trouble if next time you take it off.
Yeah.
Because of you probably have to put a little heat on it and do a little bit more work getting it off. Well, anyhow, when we put this back in, make sure you put the belt over the shaft. Otherwise you get to take it back apart again.
And probably if you wore out the bearings on your headstock, it's a good time to replace the belt. I bore out
Yeah.
bearings on 3 of my lathes and I replace the belt every time.
So,
I don't care what it looks like.
yeah.
No, we'll save it though.
So. Okay,
There's the wheel.
we're that far? Nope. Okay, again, that's shielded on both sides, so we don't have to worry about that. Now I'm tapping just on that outside edge to get that in there. It's, yes, it does. That's what holds it. Yeah, from shifting.
These bearings come from Delta, Ranger, or
No, these come offline. And they were, originally, they wanted 2 sets of bearings to, for 2 of the lathes. And when we looked, if we bought the 3rd set, you got free shipping. And it was cheaper than buying just 2 sets of bearings. So we got 3, that's why we got this one today. Okay, should be up there. Yeah. Story of my life here.
you wanna tap on?
Here,
Oh, there you
we'll just put a block of wood in there. Bring your tailstock up, lock it down. And we'll tap it back in again. Uh, I can right here on the first part. Yeah, well, I'm starting to hit on that. Get a little, so I'll go back to the outside, it'll slide onto the spindle, but it's, and the reason I'm doing it this way again is I don't wanna be nicking that ball or anything so that you. Oh,
Another thing you can use is a socket.
Hmm.
That just barely fits inside that raise.
Yeah.
Drive that thing.
Thank you. I'm just gonna tap it up here to make sure that socket was. Okay. Make sure you put your wave washer back on. And no, left hand, left hand. Yeah. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind on lathes is you'll see a lot of people turning outboard, which is back here, because they can't get a bigger piece over their bed. The smaller bearing is on the back end. The larger bearing is on the front side, and you've got a bigger piece on the back end with more weight and more centrifugal energy and stuff like that. So you're putting a bigger load on a smaller bearing. So you want to kind of keep that in mind when you're doing that. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing it. Just keep in mind that that bearing is smaller. And let's see here. There's a key in it. It's a keyed shaft. All I'm doing right here is trying to line this belt up. Come on, come on. Yes, yeah. If you have them way out of line, you're going to be rubbing the edge of the belt against the side of the pulley. So either top or bottom, one way or the other. If they're not pretty straight. And that's pretty good right there. All right. Oh, there it is. Looking at the wrong table. I'm sure none of you guys have ever set stuff down and looked for it. Sets right there in front of your face. I just had a piece with a 5/16 ball in it that dropped down into a detent. I took that out. You think I could find that ball again? I ended up going down to the hardware store, getting a 5/16 ball. Some places don't sell that stuff. Some of the hardware stores, but I put it in, so now I'll find the other ball. Yeah. Yeah. That and springs. You got to watch springs. They go all over. And now we're just going to bring that up, snug it up, And then we're gonna back it off just a hair. Not hardly any at all. There was several marks on this shaft here where these set screws had bit in before, so this has been off before. Uh, and everything feels good. Is this plugged in? Yeah, it is. There you are. Now, there's really not all that much to it, and there's no reason to be messing around with a bad bearing in your lathe. What'll happen is sometimes these will be a little bit loose on the back, and they'll and they'll start to shuck. The bearing really isn't bad, and all you have to do is draw that up a little bit. But be careful when you do it that you don't over tighten it, because if you over tighten it, you're going to burn those bearings up real quick. Probably won't get past half hour or so. I have had people come and ask me about them, that that they put new bearings in and they try to over tighten them. And the first thing they try to do when they got a bad bearing is try to over tighten it. And that's the worst thing you can do to it. Loosen it up a little bit, just a little bit, and see if your problem goes away. And that's pretty much